76ers say that Embiid will be out throughout the weekend while the treatment plan is being finalized for the 7-time All-Star. In 12 games without Embiid this season, Philly just 3-9. For some insight, we now turn to CBS Sports injury analyst Marty Jaramillo. Marty, interesting times here because we're talking about an injury to an athlete that we've seen before for that very athlete. We'll get to the repeat injury aspect of it, but first, what's happening right now with that medical team? What are they looking at to determine not only treatment, but time to return?
Sure. Well, let's go back to basics. Tough blow for Embiid and the Sixers towards lateral meniscus on his left knee. But 2 years ago during the playoffs, did the same thing on his right knee to that repeat injury. So from a biomechanic standpoint, might be predisposed. So what is the meniscus, right? We all hear about someone tearing cartilage in the knee. Well, that's a meniscus. A little show and tell. Here in this blue aspect, this is a right knee. Outside lateral meniscus, inside medial meniscus. They are two C-shaped structures that are thick fibrocartilage that help dissipate the forces of sports, also work with shock absorption, and because they cup the upper bone, it adds to stability as well. If you're going to tear one or the other, you'd rather tear the lateral meniscus because there's no other structures connected to that, and it does heal well. But to your exact question, the plan of care, it takes time to create the plan of care because there's many different variables. Three main variables regarding this tear. Number one, size and type of tear, right? It could be vertical, straight, angular, circular. So size and type is one variable. Two is the location. Is it more towards the outside where there's good blood supply or more towards the inside where there's less blood supply? And three, despite the size of the tear, does it affect range of motion? Does it lock the knee? Or with sport-specific activities, is there pain with any kind of agility type drills? Now, you take those three variables and what of our three scenarios? One, no surgery needed. You can play with a torn meniscus and he can be back in 3 to 4 weeks and they will reassess throughout the season. Second, he will require arthroscopic surgery to trim away as least amount of material as possible. And that'll be a 4 to 6 week recovery following arthroscopic surgery. And the worst case scenario is what we know as a meniscal repair. And that means the location of the tear is towards the outside of the knee where there is good blood supply, but lengthy rehab, 3 to 4 months. But by saving that cartilage with a repair, it does prevent some long-term deterioration and degenerative issues with the knee. So that's why it's taking time. But once we have more details, we can talk more about the specific choice he made. The management, the player, medical staff really have to weigh the risk reward of all three different scenarios.
And I think you hit on it right there. Risk reward when we're talking about Joel Embiid is massive. The future of the franchise very much being determined here, at least near term, whether or not they will have Embiid for any portion of the remainder of this season. When you say size, I know you're talking about of the tear, but talk to me about the size of the individual. The fact that we're dealing with a 7-footer who's got to lace it up and go very impact heavy on hardwood. Is that any determining factor when they are determining care and taking a look at what should be done as it relates to Joel Embiid?
That's a great question because it is, at the end of the day, all physics, biomechanics. He tore his lateral meniscus 2 years ago. Now the other side 2 years later. Now, that doesn't happen. You don't tear lateral meniscus on both sides. That would be a rare situation. So he's probably predisposed based on his biomechanics. And the longer lever arm, the length of those bones, a lot more torque on each individual joint. I know that medical staff and the strength and conditioning department, with players of that size and that elite strength and speed, they work a lot on shock absorption over a long period of time. Endurance, shock absorption, landing techniques, all to help dissipate those forces. There's a lot of choices they have to make. Just to remind folks, he missed 3 games last month with a sore knee, and he played through it. And we saw him labor through that Golden State game, and he got hurt in the fourth quarter. So he may have gotten into that game with some swelling. And when you have even a little bit of swelling, the knee can ship and predispose you to an injury. But he's a gamer. He plays through a lot.
As we track injury, not just for Joel Embiid, we saw the long list of it and what is asked of the body in this game right now. Are you seeing any increase in this type of injury in the game due to just, we were talking about it, size, speed, physicality of what's asked of an NBA athlete today?
That is a question that I've been looking at this and looking at the data for over 10 years. In 2013, the NBA started tracking the amount of distance and speed each player does throughout every game. And the data is startling. There are almost 70 more fast breaks per game. The speed, tremendous speed, bigger, faster, stronger. And over 100 players last season alone ran the equivalent of over 5 marathons. So we are seeing running injuries, hamstring, calves, Achilles, and because of the speed, we're seeing these high impact injuries that we don't even talk about only in football. Now we're seeing collapsed lungs, broken ribs. Never did I report on basketball injuries of that nature, 10 years ago.
Well, it's interesting to see how it's all going to play out, and we're obviously hoping for the best and the most immediate return here for Joel Embiid, but still plenty to be determined by that medical staff in Philadelphia. Marty,
it's a different game. It's a different game.
It surely is. We appreciate to have you by our side to break